Sorry guys, it keeps jumping back and forth in this screen. Every time I hit the control panel for this thing, it jumps out of it.
And
okay, here we go.
All right. So yeah, like I was saying, we've got two different publishers of the charts. We use Jeppesen. Like everything that we do for SkyWest is Jeppesen. In fact, most of the country uses Jeppesen, and so that's what we're going to teach you is how to read the Jeppesen charts. But if you look at the NACO charts, you can find all of the same exact identical information on the NACO charts as you can find on the Jeppesen charts. Okay, so no worries there. It's just formatted differently. So like I was saying before, we're just starting over this slideshow. Like I was telling you guys before, well, the outline, you know, we're going to go over the IFR and route charts. We're going to tell you the difference between, you know, your Victor routes and Q routes, T routes, jet routes, the RNAV versus ground-based. We're going to talk about IFR preferred routes, TEC, NRP or the North American Route System, extended operations, ETOPS. We're not going to go too much into that. It's going to be very, very basic, and we'll probably skip through 99% of it. But then low and high altitude chart information and area charts. So let's see here. So like we said before, and on that video you guys watched yesterday, we've got the low altitude charts, which is everything below 18,000 feet. And the main route that we're going to use, the route type that we're going to use when we're looking at those charts is going to be Victor Airways, okay? Remember, low altitude Victor Airways. And I showed you guys the SkyVector yesterday and showed you the Victor Airways. It's a lot more of that spider web. There's a lot more, how do you say it, Davis?
There's a lot more routes and there's a lot more options you can do as far as flying goes. What that is mostly like general aviation that's going to be using those. We use those some for some of our shorter routes, but it's, I mean, below 18,000 feet is not a very common thing for many major airlines. So there's a lot more like kind of random routes that are going from low VOR to low VOR, and they're going from all of these random little airports to other random little airports. And it's there's a lot bigger of a like system of webs.
Yeah, exactly. So so when we're another way you can look at these low altitude charts is we sometimes use low altitude charts to get us to transition us from a terminal or an airport area into the en route portion. So the climb, sometimes we'll use these to get from that airport into the high charts. You know, sometimes we'll use those Victor routes to transition that.
Then there are also a lot of Victor routes that are the same as your jet routes. They're just lower.
Yeah. So, and then high altitude, you know, everything 18,000 feet to 45. So this is where 90% of all of your traffic is going to be. And like I said before, this is your higher speed. This is going to be your, you know, commercial airlines, cargo, military aircraft, everything in between. And it, it's those freeways that we were talking about. There's nothing really restrictive other than everything's restrictive. I don't know how to word it, but the primary route that we're going to use when we're using our high altitude charts are those jet routes. So, do you have anything you want to throw in there?
No, I mean, mainly that ATC uses those jet routes for a lot of aircraft spacing. So they get you up there, and you can actually even be centered over it, or a little bit off to the left of it, or a little bit off to the right of it. They use all sorts of things based around those routes, just to space everyone out.
Yeah, and that's
in that Class A jet routes, or is it all based off of cruising speed of all the aircraft?
Yeah, it's cruise speed. ATC, depending on altitude and aircraft types and stuff, they can adjust your speed and tell you to speed up, slow down. They know that most aircraft are going to be cruising along at like Mach 0.8 or in that area. But like military aircraft, stuff like that, they can, in Class A, there's really no speed restrictions other than the restriction that air traffic control assigns. So if you can go, Mach 3 and you're over water, go ahead, So, all right. So once again, this is looking at the low chart. You can see the green box is showing you guys the different Victor routes, and then it's, like we talked about yesterday, those triangles are the intersections, and that's, like I said yesterday, that's extremely important for us to know the difference between what an intersection, how to identify an intersection versus a waypoint, and what the intersection is. You can see that intersection right there is basically giving us an altitude change. And a lot of times we're not so worried about this as dispatchers. We need to be aware of it so that if we are trying to plan a route, we're going to make it a route that's practical for the pilots to fly. But typically, the pilots are more concerned about the symbols that are on these charts. We're going to get to know them. We're going to be familiar with them, but we do need to have that understanding for our planning phases. So remember, there's the intersections, and then we have the waypoints. So. As you can see here, we've got our high chart. You can see that jet routes are designated with that J. You can see, a whole bunch of different jet routes. Like Davis is pointing to jet route 14 there. The box over here on the right side, you can see those those different waypoints. And remember, like I just said, if we see a triangle, that's using ground-based navigational aids. When we see that star, that's using satellite-based navigation. So,
All right, I've got kind of a choppy connection. What was the symbol for waypoint?
It's that four-sided star that he's hovering over there. Okay. In this class, we're pretty much solely going to be using ground-based navigation. For we're going to talk about satellite-based navigation. That's the direction that all aviation is going. But remember that this VHF navigation that we use nowadays, that was started back in like the, what, 40s? Was when we were, we were first starting to use that VHF radio navigation. And it took a long time for them to implement that across the board. In fact, it took World War II to start the implementation process for that. And then that's kind of what jump-started it all, is because those, aircraft needed some way to navigate transcontinental or trans-Pacific, transatlantic. And so that's when it all started, but it started with some really basic navigational aids. So it took an extremely long time to implement all of those changes into the aircraft. Think about how long satellite navigation has already been around, and it's still going to take a long time for us to transition all aircraft into that satellite-based navigation. It's a lot more accurate and a lot more precise. We can use, one of the types of satellite-based navigation is called RNP, and it's like a tractor beam, basically. Whereas right now, air traffic control is still giving a lot of input to pilots when they're coming in to land. RNP basically eliminates the need for the communication and allows the pilots to fly the same exact route, rather than air traffic control having to be super intensive as the pilots are coming in to land at the airport. So, it's a lot more advanced, and it allows for a lot better accuracy. So, but we won't see that get fully implemented for probably another 15, 20 years. And they started implementing RNP navigation 15, 20 years ago. So yeah, changes take a long time to get everybody on board. And a lot of times it's driven by cost. It's not practical to change all of your avionics in an aircraft because that costs, thousands and thousands of dollars. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they've got to implement these changes over a certain amount of time. There's a break-in period, so to speak. So, you wanna give this slide a go, Davis?
Sure. So basically what we're looking at here with these IFR routes is a lot of these Victor routes and jet routes are based off of ground-based navigation. And we kind of use these as like the highways of the sky. So 4 nautical miles wide is what we're looking at. And like I was saying earlier, sometimes you will actually go up and you'll be in the plane and you'll be dead center over it. And then maybe a little ways ahead of you will be somebody over off to the right, and then maybe a little ways ahead of them, somebody over off to the left. So they actually will use the whole thing, and they can have the computers in the plane input where you are, and that kind of helps with spacing as well as wake turbulence, and that kind of gives them their way of making sure everybody's going kind of where they're supposed to be. Like we were saying, Victor Airways are less than 18,000 feet, and then jet routes 18 to 45. So when you're going east and west, they're going to have different flight levels. And that's basically to keep from airplanes running into each other. If you're heading from west to the east, you're going to be on an odd flight level. If you're heading from the west to, or from the east to the west, you're going to be on an even flight level. And that's basically
and that's that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, that's that NEOD sweeping that we were talking about yesterday. On Victor Airways, it's a little tiny bit different, but at the high altitudes, we use that NEOD sweep in the north going east is odd, and then south going west is even. So it changes just a little bit with these Victor Airways. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You good with that?
Yep. Yeah, I always just remember that as when you're going east, east is least. Just you're odd. It's going to start with 1. So that's a good way to remember that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then these changeover points is basically going to be, is this where they're talking about changing over in your frequency?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So when you go in these, when you're flying around, you're going to be going in between different air traffic control centers. So there's not just one air traffic control center that's governing, like that they're talking to every plane in the United States. There's going to be a lot smaller centers. So when you look at these, there's going to be these small centers here, and they're going to be basically governing and following and spacing all the airplanes in those little centers. So when you hit these changeover points, it's going to be when you're going from one center to another. And basically what that is in the plane, when they're leaving one center, ATC is going to be talking to the pilots and basically saying, you know, SkyWest flight 1435, now change over your frequency to 123.52. And so then you will be, once you change over, you will then be talking to the next center. And then they will be monitoring you and monitoring your aircraft spacing and things like that.
Yeah, and something else that it's also doing is look at the VOR, that bottom picture. So you can see a picture of this exact thing as well. Is sometimes there's VOR, they'll use these changeover points. There's a VOR on both sides of the aircraft, right? So this aircraft is flying that Victor 344, 344, and you can see that there's mountainous terrain. So the signal is no longer reliable from that VOR on the right side because of that mountainous terrain. So very high frequency, we call this line of sight frequency. And it's what happens is when it hits that mountain, it bounces off or the mountain completely absorbs it. And so once that frequency hits that mountain, you can see they call that a slant range. So as the airplane goes over the top of that mountain, that frequency is no longer reliable. So sometimes they'll put these changeover points in there to tell the pilot, hey, your signal is going to not be reliable from this VOR to this VOR the entire distance of that Victor airway. And so that changeover point is put in there to tell the pilot when he's 22 miles from the VOR on the right, he needs to change over his frequency to the next VOR. So.
And that's what this little symbol is when you see these on the routes, that's the changeover point.
Yeah. So sometimes they put them in for, like Davis was saying, air traffic control is going to be, handing you over from frequency to frequency at that point. But another reason is because when you're in mountainous terrain, sometimes that signal's no longer reliable. So a lot of times air traffic control will come over the radio even if you're in a smaller aircraft, not necessarily in larger airlines because you're using you can see that slant range is a lot greater at higher altitudes. But sometimes air traffic control will say, hey, you need to change over your VOR if you're having flight following at that lower altitude. So.
These VORs too, if you guys have ever driven from St. George to Las Vegas, from St. George to Las Vegas, it'll actually be on your left about, it's
right by,
not far after Mesquite.
Yeah, it's right by that Valley of Fire, isn't it?
Yeah, and it looks literally exactly like that. That's what a VOR looks like. It's really weird looking. It looks like a alien spaceship landed there. And that's the Mormon Mesa VOR down there.
Yeah. We're actually, when you guys come down here for that 2 weeks, like, I don't know if I remember telling you guys, we're going to do a visit out to the airport, and you guys will be able to see the St. George VOR. So.
Is that the one at the end of runway 19?
Runway 1, right?
Yeah,
to the south of the airport.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on the south end of the airport there.
So these RNAV routes, the lower ones are going to be T routes, and the high ones are going to be Q routes. Basically what these are is it's pretty much the same thing, but it's going to be RNAV. Everything's going to be based off of RNAV waypoints and using your GPS. And actually Canada has done a really good job of using these, and they forked over the money a long time ago to make sure that their ATC system was a little more updated than ours. We're kind of following a lot of that. But yeah, the high end routes are the Q routes, and these go basically all over the place, because there's no really restrictions of dealing with VORs. And you'll see these kind of differentiated on the maps. So they're right next to, this will be Jet Route 126, and then right next to it is this Q route. And sometimes they even go over each other like that. But so planes can use either one as long as they have the capabilities. And this is kind of with that RNP that he was talking about earlier. There's a lot of capabilities that planes that are RNP capable can do to basically be completely guided upon these routes.
So are those just higher in altitude, or what differentiates them from a jet route?
It's going to be, so they're not going from VOR to VOR. Everything is going to be based off of RNAV. It's going to be based off of GPS, and T routes are low routes. So those are going to be more like your Victor routes. And then your Q routes are going to be more like your J routes, as far as your in-route altitudes and things like that. So 18, below 18, and then 18 up to 45.
Yeah, so basically there's no difference between the two routes is what it boils down to, other than the navigational equipment that the pilot is using. So we keep talking about this ground-based navigation, or those little VORs that you saw on the last slide. Those are going to be your jet routes and your Victor Airways, okay? Whereas satellites are going to give us our Q routes and our T route navigation. So Q route equals jet route, and T route equals Victor Airway. They're synonymous. They're the exact same thing. The only difference is the navigational, what's providing the navigational information to the aircraft. Is it ground-based navigation, or is it satellite-based navigation?
So basically, when you're on these Victor routes and jet routes, this ground-based navigation that we're talking about, these VORs, they're emitting a frequency that planes can find, and that's how they can basically tell where they are in the air. So when you're, let's say, like right here or on this route, and you're in your plane, you can actually dial into the frequency that this VOR is putting out, and you can find that very, very easily. But if you're on this Q route, there's nothing you can really dial into. You have to have RNAV capabilities in your plane, and you would have to have a GPS. And if your GPS went out, there's really not a way you can, like if your RNAV capabilities went out, there's no way you can find this Q route.
And we'll go over the instrumentation that the pilot sees, but it, like Davis said, when you tune into those VOR frequencies, like Battleground, you can see it's just like tuning in your car radio, you know, 97.9, or I don't know what frequencies you guys use down here in St. George. I don't really listen to car radios, but like 101.3, you know, it's no different. You tune in a radio, just like your car radio, in the airplane, and there's an instrument inside the aircraft that has a little airplane on it, and it has a needle, and as long as you're on that needle and it says that you're going to the station, basically you'd fly right over the top of that radio station. So it's pretty cool stuff though. So these preferred IFR routes, these are basically, so the AFD is our airport facility directory. So every airport in the United States has a page, or depending on the size of the airport, several pages in this AFD. It's like an encyclopedia of airports, and that's it, okay? Some of these preferred IFR routes, so some of the bigger airports, the major terminals, will have published routes that they want you to fly between airports. Does that make sense? So when they have those preferred routes, that's what air traffic control is saying, hey, make our life easier, and this is what we want you to file if you're flying from San Francisco to LA, or LA to San Diego, or, you know, things like that. They'll publish exactly what they want to see when you submit your route to air traffic control. So and kind of to digress and to dumb down the what I'm talking about, what you're filing with ATC. Every time an airplane is going to take off and fly from airport to airport, and they're using IFR, so instrument flight rules, they have to submit to air traffic control the exact route that they're going to fly. They also need to tell air traffic control what kind of navigational equipment's on the airplane, and they need to tell them what time they're planning on leaving the airport, okay? What time do we want to take off? And then the last, well, no. So that's basically what an air traffic control, what we have to submit to air traffic control is, you know, what kind of a plane and what kind of navigational equipment are we going to be using? What route are we going to take, and what time do we want to take off at? And then they'll take that information and they'll either say, yeah, we like that route, or yeah, we approve that route, or they'll say, nope, you need to try it again. You need to file a different route, or you need to change this on there. So air traffic control kind of signs off on it. When they accept that route, that means that that's what they're going to put the plane on. They're going to tell the pilot, when he takes off, he's going to fly this direction. He's going to fly at this altitude. All of their approvals are based on what we filed our airplane on, okay? And so now going back to this preferred IFR routes, like I said, sometimes air traffic control, they want to see it a very specific way when we file our flight plan to them. And sometimes if you don't file it the way they like to see it, they'll just reject it and send it back to you. So luckily for us at SkyWest, all of this is automated. Sometimes we have to call air traffic control and have them take the strip out, or have them, you know, make changes to what we sent them. But for the most part, it's all automated, and we don't have to worry about it once we sent it to them.
A lot of what
They would advise
Go
why,
ahead.
right? Sorry.
Say that
They
again.
would advise why. They would advise why. They wouldn't just reject, right?
Sometimes you'll see it rejected, and you'll just see rejected, you know, ATC rejected this strip, and then they just leave it up to you. Sometimes they'll actually call our supervisor. One of the big things is we have to change something manually on our flights in the Embraer 175s leaving San Francisco right now. There's a certain procedure we can't do with our airplane. And so if we file our strip and we call it a D0 on there, there's not a D0 in our line, then air traffic control will call up our supervisor and say, hey, your guy didn't follow or file correctly, tell him to refile. And we know that it's because we missed something in the equipment strip. So, but there are times where they'll tell you exactly what you missed, and sometimes they're just like, figure it out, Waldo. Yeah.
Sometimes they'll actually wait, and I mean, you can file and fuel for exactly what you want to, and then all of a sudden your plane rolls up to the end of the runway and they give a completely different route. And then you have to start from square one, and sometimes you have to return to the gate for more fuel, and that can be very frustrating. But a lot of what ATC is trying to do is they don't want everyone just going every which way and crossing, you know, at all sorts of different intersections. They want to be able to know where everyone's at and have some organization as to where their intersections are going to be, because they're going to have to start spacing airplanes as they're coming into these airports, especially into big airports like Atlanta, New York, San Francisco, where there's planes landing constantly. And so they want them all coming in on the same route so that they can space them.
Yeah, and
That makes sense.
I wish you guys were up in the Salt Lake area, because my cousin's actually the liaison for Salt Lake Center. He does all the en route air traffic control stuff. And I'd love to take you guys in and show you what kind of hell those guys deal with on a daily basis. But as soon as we submit this strip, air traffic control is already planning exactly where your plane's going to be, at what time they expect you to be there. Like, it's all laid out, you know. And with these clearances, sometimes we'll go into what we call a ground delay program, meaning that there's weather or there's too many planes coming into an airport at one time. And so air traffic control, and we'll talk about these programs that they put in place, but a ground delay program is a perfect example because the pilot, what is it? They have 10 minutes or 15 minutes, a 15-minute window that they have to take off. If they're not in the air, wheels up, within 15 minutes of the time that they're given, then air traffic control says, nope, back of the line. And they'll shut them, you have to wait again before you can take off. So air traffic control, the spacing doesn't start when you're in the air approaching a point. The spacing starts before you ever take off.
So tech routes are, they're kind of like preferred routes, but basically what we're dealing with here is very short flights. And instead of reading off a clearance that is kind of long for, say, Santa Barbara to LA, it's an extremely short flight. And so if they start reading stuff off, it just kind of helps to be able to use these tech routes. And so an entire route might be, so like you look at this first one. Oh gosh, can't even hardly read. But anyway, this is basically like a route. And then is that Earl? Basically they just give this route a name, and it might just be called like my eyesight's not real great, but like the
Burl 3.
The Burl 3. And so they might just come over the clearance and say you're cleared for the Burl 3. And then you have to go and look this up and say, okay, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing. But these tech routes are basically just preferred routes that are extremely short airport city pairs. So these flights may only take 10 minutes. We run a lot of these, and when we run them, it actually can cause some confusion because depending on where you look at the clearance, it will just say this. And if you're looking at what you filed, as in the entire route, it'll kind of trip you up sometimes. And so you kind of have to know what these are. But it's basically just they give an entire route like a slang name.
Yeah, and it also gives them preferred altitudes as well. And then, what's the max speed? One thing that trips up pilots that get issued these tech routes and stuff like that, like Santa Barbara to LA. What's the max speed that you can fly below 10,000 feet? I'm asking.
250.
200.
250 under 10,000.
Yeah, 250 under 10,000 feet. So what will happen is our ATC strip that we submit to air traffic control, remember that 250 knots is indicated airspeed. Well, as we climb in altitude, our ground speed, or if there's strong winds, our ground speed will change. So we send to ATC what our ground speed is going to be. And the pilots will call me all the time and say, hey, you got me filed at 315 knots. And I'm, and 7,000 feet in altitude. And it's like, well, no, that's your ground speed. And your indicated will read 250, but your ground speed will be 320 or whatever it is. So it messes with pilots too.
Just a question here. So the instrumentation that most pilots have will tell them indicated airspeed. Do they have an instrument that tells them ground speed, or is that something that they need to either do calculations for, or they need dispatch to relay?
No, it's all their screen will show them what their ground speed is. but indicated is indicated, period. Whatever their indicated is, that's what air traffic control wants them to fly. Because one guy's ground speed may be quicker than the other guy's ground speed, but it's really hard to explain. But basically, the federal regulation states 250 knots indicated airspeed. We don't really have control of ground speed, right? And another important part of that puzzle is indicated airspeed is how fast we have sensors on the airplane called pitot tubes. So our indicated airspeed is pretty much what we go off of when we start talking about stall speeds and things of that nature. If we drop below a certain speed, our plane could stall out and stop producing lift. So indicated airspeed is important because if we have a really strong tailwind, let's say our ground speed is 320 knots, and we're trying to get our ground speed down to 250 knots, that's a 70 knot difference. So that may cause our airplane to stall at that point. So, well, it's confusing right now, but we'll get into how an airplane flies, and it hopefully will make a little sense then.
Yeah, well, and I'd already gone through that section in Shepherd, and I think that's why I'm so confused, because I'd studied about pitot tubes, and so yeah, it was kind of sometimes studying ahead can kind of get you in trouble.
No worries at all. All right, so the North American route system, basically it's a joint FAA and Canada route system, and it's for flights above 29,000 feet. It's going to be domestic, international flight operations. This is something that we don't really usually spend too much time on. I mean, do you have any relevant information for this, Davis?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something that's hugely important.
Especially at SkyWest. I mean, a lot of times this is something that may take effect when you're dispatching for a major airline, but it's not something that we really use. ETOPS. I'm okay just skipping ETOPS.
Yeah, ETOPS is I've got a pretty firm hold on most aviation routing, and I had a pilot explain to me ETOPS the other day, and he started going into a lot of detail, and it was, I mean, it's a lot. But there's just a ton of rules.
So yeah, you take all of 121, and you saw how many times it said in that 121 section, it would have, part 121, just your regular, airline ATP stuff. But then it would say supplemental, and then it would have a separate section for ETOPS. ETOPS is an animal of its own. So, we could go back and break down some ETOPS, but it 100% is not relevant. And it is one thing that will be taught to you in the future when you need to learn ETOPS, let's say you go to Delta or Southwest, if you need to learn ETOPS, they will give you the proper training on ETOPS, but it's not something you need for your basic dispatch license. So here's some information about, our different charts here. So you can see each one of these maps. If you want to jump over to SkyVector really quick, Davis, if you want to pull that up on a tab or something. And you guys are lucky because you guys will get to use SkyVector for your practical test. There's like a time that they allowed SkyVector on your practical test. Go to the World High map if you could. And then there was a time that they didn't allow it. And when I tested, they didn't allow it. We had to use all paper maps and stuff, and it just takes a lot longer to do your flight plan. It's the identical technique. It just takes forever. But now they're allowing it again. Yeah. Now they're allowing it again. So you guys get lucky because it's a hell of a lot faster than what we had to do before. So click on that charts, the globe up on the top there. And then go ahead and click that LA chart. So if you go to this chart section, scroll all the way to the left, I believe, if you drag and drop it, go all the way to the left. Does that make sense? Yeah. Keep going to the edge of the chart. Okay. So there's some information. I think the other side might have the legend or key on it. So that's all your special use airspaces. Try the other side of the map. There we go. There's our legend. So we can look at these legends. Basically, all this slide is pointing at is showing us that we can find all of this information on what these different symbols, what the different notations are on this map in these keys. And it makes it really nice on SkyVector because we don't have to go out and renew our charts every, what is it, 60 days or 90 days? These maps,
like that.
Yeah, if you buy these maps are each like $8 a piece. Last time I bought any of these maps, I think they were like $8 a piece. And you had to buy a new map every, gosh, I want to say it's 90 days.
It's great
every
business.
90 days, it is.
Yeah.
Because it's required too. If an FAA inspector comes up to a pilot and says, I need to see your maps, if they have an expired map, if they're using an expired map, then they can, cite them right then and there for using expired maps. So luckily you don't have to do that anymore with the SkyVector. But you can see all the airport information up in that top section there. You can see the difference between civil airports, civil and military use airports, military airports. It gives you some information as to why one's blue, one's green, one's brown. You can see all the different navigational aids and how they're depicted on the chart. you can see the compass rose, what it means and how it's used. Communication boxes. Basically, this key will break down every single part of the map. All the symbols you see, everything, and give you a ton of information on it. Sometimes, I still refer back to these because there's no way to completely memorize all the different symbols or what they mean or how they're applied to your practical flight planning, but it just takes a lot of looking at these maps to get the hang of what information do I need from them, what am I looking for. So do you have anything to throw in there?
Not really. You'll end up reverting back to a lot of these when we're doing our plans.
Yeah. And we'll go through and break down some of the important symbols. But I'm going to give you guys a video to watch on using these maps. I'll give you a couple videos on how we use these maps. But we'll review this before we go into the practical section. But just know that when you hit the practical section of the class, we're really going to become familiar with these maps and get really comfortable with them. So they're a little daunting right now. There's a whole lot going on, as you can see, but don't let it stress you out. You guys will be pros.
And then you'll end up dispatching on a computer and forget a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And it disappears from your head quick too. I've noticed when you're not using it a lot.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have this class to keep me fresh on a lot of this stuff. But
I was trying to find some changeover points or something after we talked about that.
Yeah, I believe
there's one.
Yep, right there, Mohawk.
And you'll get used to what a lot of these symbols mean, what a lot of these distances mean. You'll be able to use a lot of these. You get pretty comfortable with them. And when I say that you'll forget half of them or half the stuff on here, you actually still do use it all the time. Today I had an ATC reroute that went on. They had me jump on a jet route at a VOR and then jump back off of it at another VOR, and so I had to build the route around that. So you still will have to be able to read them and be able to know how to use them.
Yeah, I build a lot of routes in my day-to-day dispatching. A lot of times just to, if I've got time especially, but I kind of like, rather than just, some dispatchers, their mentality is, I'll see a storm building in one section of the map, and I know my route goes pretty close to that, so I'll just give them a bunch of extra fuel to get around it, because ATC is going to do whatever they want anyways. But I kind of like turn it into a game. What is ATC going to do right now, or when my flight gets there? And I try to plan that route as close to what I think ATC is going to do. And sometimes that requires me building my own route. We also have quite a selection of routes that we can choose from that are already pre-built. But I try to match my route to what I believe ATC is going to do. And that way, when ATC assigns a reroute or something happens where the pilot's got to go around it, sometimes the pilots just automatically freak out and they're kind of like, oh crap, I don't have enough fuel now to do this flight. Well, actually you do, because I planned for some sort of change in my original ATC routing. So your fuel on board is actually about the same that ATC is now requiring you to have with that route. So sometimes, you kind of pat yourself on the back because you saw it coming and guessed correctly.
Oh, I definitely take pride in those.
Yeah, we call it the superior spatching. So
superior spatching.
But
there we go.
But yeah, that's just those are the keys that we showed you. So this page here is actually really important. This is just showing you the difference in the symbolism between the Jeppesen charts and the NOAA or NACO charts that SkyVector has, okay? So in Jeppesen, this is how it's depicted on the left side, whereas when you're using the NACO or NOAA charts, they're going to be depicted like you see on the right side. So like I said before, it's very similar, but there are small changes between the two. So I just think that Jeppesen's cleaner, a much cleaner look overall. So
it could just be my computer, but do you guys just see big white blank here?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what's going on there. It's no biggie.
Well, let's see.
We can show them on SkyVector too. That's kind of why I keep it up.
Localizer symbol, 5-letter names. Whoop. Let's see, so what was it? Distances and fixes. So here we're looking at, if you have a 5-letter name, you're going to be so pleased whenever you find your name. Mine's in Northern Illinois. But it's always going to be a 5-letter symbol here. So this little triangle is going to be a fix. And basically what this is going to have is you're going to be able to find these based upon a distance off of another VOR. So, so like this one would be 279, the radial, and then this little 53 right here is the distance off of that. So that's one of the ways that you can find that. So there's going to be let's see. And there's also okay, there's also sorts of there's going to be different ones. So when you look at these distances, sometimes you just go and you add them up. Sometimes there will be these boxes that tell you the total anyway. And then sometimes they'll give you a box with an arrow. And the box with the arrow is how far it is from this VOR to here. even though there's a fix in between. So we're looking at 44, 27 adds to 71. So we just know that from the VOR to this point is 71. So they've got all sorts of math already done for us on these, which makes it a whole lot easier. And you're going to get really sick of adding up numbers when we're doing extended flight plans if you start going 44, 27, 69, but I can already tell you it's going to be 141. And then if it goes around this, that means that this VOR is actually not part of that jet route. These coming off of here, these numbers are going to be the radials. And then, so you'll be able to tell kind of where you're going based upon those, and then based upon the distance. So you'll kind of know where you are. And we'll also be able to, that's basically how we find everything once we get into approach charts and missed approaches and things like that, is that's how they find all these points.
Yeah, and so some of these VORs, most VORs are equipped with what we call a DME, or distance measuring equipment. And that's what the pilot can actually see the distance from the tuned in VOR. So if they're tuned into this Buckeye VOR, it's going to be sending a signal that has the mileage from that station. So that's how he knows he's over that messy intersection there, is because that 53 miles will show up on his DME, and it'll show that he's on the 279 radial there. So that's how the pilots use that information. And once again, when we, like, just to reiterate what Davis said, when we get into the approach charts and stuff like that, that's when you're really going to start using those distances.
Where's a localizer symbol?
I see them all over all the time. When I don't want to find them, there's probably one up LA or San Diego. Or
Here's LA. Oh, I know there's one off of 270 in San Diego.
Do you know what it is? You might have to switch to the low chart. I don't think you can get it on the high chart. So, yeah, switch to the world low.
Here it is. So, well, yeah, that's San Diego. And then they've got an ILS off of 9.
Yeah. So that localizer symbol that you can see there in San Diego Airport, you see the giant orange circle in the center of the screen? That's San Diego baseball field, but at the top left corner, you'll see San Diego Airport, and you see that arrow pointing to it. That's the localizer symbol, okay? So think of it as like the tractor beam going into that airport. That airport has what we call a localizer on it, that runway, and it's shooting out a signal telling the pilot where they are on their approach to, it's giving them a vertical guidance.
Well, the localizer is going to be sending, the ILS is going to be sending vertical and
that's
horizontal guidance. The glide path will be giving the vertical, and the localizer will be giving the horizontal.
Horizontal, that's right. So yeah, so that tractor beam is just basically telling the pilot you're left or right of the runway as they're coming in on approach. So So one thing that we're going to see a lot of, and you guys have already seen a lot of on that SkyVector, is the VOR symbols. There's different types of VORs. We have VORs that are equipped with DMEs. We have VORs that are just VORs. We have what's called a VORTAC. And a VORTAC is basically military. It's got military navigational information that it will send out as well. So you want to jump over to SkyVector really quick?
Yeah.
There's a VORTAC. Well, Miramar there.
Yeah.
So Mission Bay, that's a VORTAC. But you can see that there's, if you look in the communication box where it says Mission Bay, you can see a frequency of 117.8. And then you can see the identifier for that station, and then you see a 125. Well, that 125 is what the military aircraft will tune into to receive navigational aid from that VOR, because they use a little bit different. So to be honest with you, like their radios and navigational equipment is far superior to anything civilian use. So they're getting a lot more information off of that VOR than what your normal civilian aircraft use. And so
Civilian aircraft can still use these VORTACs.
right.
Just can't get as much off of it. We can use a VORTAC is basically a VOR and a TACAN in the same thing. And we can use the VOR, and then we can also use the TACAN for DME. But the military can use the TACAN for all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you're saying, it doesn't mean that it's solely the military, but that's the difference. Is TACANs give them a lot more information than just distance, and they use that different frequency to pull that information off of that station. So what's important to know is that, you know, even though there's little different symbols in the center, you can also see the VOR DME down in Tijuana. You know, there's different symbols in each one of these VOR boxes, but what's important to remember is that if you see that compass rose, really, that typically is going to be a ground-based navigational aid that can be used. I mean, civilian or military, or and really at the end of the day, it's going to be the pilot that's going to have to determine whether or not it's something that he's going to have to worry about, if it's VOR DME, or if it's just a TACAN, or if it's a VOR VORTAC, or what exactly the station is. We don't necessarily care in our flight planning. What we do care about with VORs is whether or not it's a high altitude VOR, low, or a terminal VOR. So high VORs, low VORs, and terminal VORs. And when we talk about VORs, that's when we'll break down some very important information on those. Okay. You can see that there's some symbols that will be like Do you see that restricted area, Davis, above to the right of the red box on the top picture?
Oh,
On the
right there.
top one. Yeah.
Yep.
Can you see the holding symbol right above it? So these
Right
racetracks, yeah, those racetracks are what we call them. They're holding points, okay? That means that if air traffic control needs to space you going into an airport or for whatever reason, these are the points at which they're going to hold you. So you'll see these racetracks whenever there's a hold point. And that's just saying, hey, air traffic control can hold you over this area. So it also gives the pilot, right? It gives the pilot an idea of what direction and where, you know, they want, which side of the fix they want them to hold on. Is that correct?
I believe so. A lot of these are put into the computer system on like large commercial aircraft, so they actually don't even really have to do much.
Yeah. If you're using a civilian general aircraft, you can see that over that fix that he's, or intersection, that poopy or whatever it is, I don't know what it is. You can see that they want them to hold to the right. Like if they were coming over that intersection, they'd want them, it's a right-hand pattern. And when you go through flight training, they actually tell you, you know, exactly how big that holding pattern is supposed to be. You know, you use a 2-minute turn, and then followed by like 1 minute of straight, and then a 2-minute turn, and then 1 minute of straight. So they tell you, you go over exactly how big that holding pattern is, but it doesn't really matter for our purposes. But.
So when we're using this ground-based, we're having to go from nav aid to nav aid, and that's kind of what just happened up here?
I don't know.
So when we use this ground-based, we're having to go from nav aid to nav aid and point to point. What that's saying down there at the bottom of that screen is that we can use random routing with RNAV. So you could basically just shoot from there. You know, you can use this random routing and go kind of completely wherever you wanted to, as long as ATC allowed you to, which they may or may not, but
a lot of that is determined by the guy that's controlling you. You know, if they're super slammed, they're not going to give you any special treatment. But then there's times where they're not slammed and the guy's just being a dick. And so he'll say, nope, you're not going to fly direct. You know, you can stay on your route. But then you got those guys that are super chill and they're like, yeah, go ahead, fly direct. I've had them clear. I had a guy get cleared. He was going from Richmond, Virginia to Denver, and he was over like Southern Illinois, and he got cleared direct into Denver, basically. It was a VOR just to the south of Denver, but it set him up on his approach. He basically said, yeah, go direct all the way. It was pretty awesome. The guy landed with like a 1,000+ pounds extra fuel. So
that's always nice.
Yeah.
So we also have all sorts of different altitudes that we have to abide by when we're flying around here. So the MOCA is the minimum obstacle clearance. So that's going to provide you with basically like an obstacle clearance. And where that's shown is going to be, it's going to give you a coverage in that area within 22 miles. And then our minimum en route altitude is going to give us obstacle clearance and navigational coverage. So that's going to allow us to be able to pick up those VOR signals that we were talking about earlier. This MEA gap is kind of what we were talking about. It might be blocked by like a mountain or something like that where you can't pick up the signal. Change in MEA. Let me see if I can find one of those.
Probably in Colorado or something.
I was about to say it's probably not in LA.
Yeah. You might get one over El Cajon or something like that over the Santa Ana range, but I doubt it.
Well, there might be one around Las Vegas.
There we go.
Oh, too far.
There, I just saw one. Go back to the world high. And it is just below Laramie to the south. Yep. MEA gap. Just to the left.
Oh, there we are. Yep. So if we looked at a big map, I don't know if you guys, so here's Denver. So the mountain range goes right along here. Yeah, here's Grand Junction, Eagle, Aspen's probably somewhere right in here.
Right there. That green dot right above.
Right there. Eagle. So that's where this big mountain range is. So that's where we're going to see these MEA gaps because they're not going to be able to pick up the VORs because there's going to be all these mountains in the way. And I mean, especially with the massive mountain range that is the Rockies, they're going to be obstructed. Yeah, sure enough, there is one.
What does the MEA then like? There's 22,000 MEA 20,000. Like on Jet Route 16, Jet Route 20, 52. What do those MEAs mean?
So MEA stands for minimum en route altitude. So for that one, it's saying if you're going to fly on Jet Route 20 right there, your minimum en route altitude has to be 22,000 feet or higher.
So part of the MEA is that it's also going to be your they want that for not only obstacle coverage but the navigation coverage. So that's why it's not 18. If we went to somewhere that was completely flat, it probably would be 18,000 feet. But they're going to be a lot higher because we're in the middle of the Rockies, and it's going to need to be able to get up higher to be able to find those VORs. Whereas the obstruction clearance Are going to be these.
Those golden numbers that he's pointing to there. That's the altitude that you have to fly to clear all obstacles. In mountainous terrain, you have to clear all obstacles by 2,000 feet or greater. So if say you lose your equipment, your navigational equipment, or something goes wrong, you know that when you're in that area, you have to be at least 15,100 feet above the ground to clear all obstacles.
And then the MAA, the maximum authorized altitude, this one's not going to be as much of an issue. Most planes that we're going to be worried about can't even get very high. So
yeah, typically our aircraft are limited by performance long before they're limited by something en route.
yeah, I mean, there's so many VORs around here that
Maybe up
I'd have to
North
look
Dakota or something.
Yeah.
But
So this,
these,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. So these ones, once again, it's just the MRAs. I think, didn't you show them an MRA on that low chart? Again, mountains cause problems for us, so sometimes you have to be at a minimum altitude to receive the VOR signal. Do you see any of the MRAs?
I may
See a
have to
bunch
go
of
back.
MCAs.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, a lot of these signals, like I said before, they're just or symbols or minimum en route altitudes. They will play a part in. Typically, the only thing that we're ever going to be worried about as dispatchers is going to be our MEAs, minimum en route altitudes. When we have to file what we call green needles routes, sometimes we have to build these routes on these airways. And so if there's an MEA of 18,000 feet, and let's say our landing gear are stuck down, we're doing a maintenance ferry flight, you know, and we're limited to 15,000 feet, we know that we can't plan an 18,000 foot MEA or route if the max altitude that we can go is 15,000 feet. So, I mean, that's the only time that we really see an issue. Is when there's like problems like that, but 99.9% of the time with dispatching, like I've never been worried about an MRA or an MCA or
Yeah.
I don't know. So, but yeah, like it says, it's the lowest altitude for adequate reception to identify an intersection or fix. Intersection of fix, sorry. Obstacle and navigation coverage identified by symbol. So you'll see that That's the one that's the flag, right?
I believe so.
Flag with an R.
There is one.
Yeah. It's just ignore it, peoples, because it's really never been an issue. I've never heard of it being an issue. That's a lot more on the pilot side than it is on the dispatch side.
There's a flag with an R in the bottom middle of the screen. Right off of, let's see, to the right and down. It's literally at the bottom of your screen.
Radio
Yeah.
131.
There we go.
Yeah, there's an R.
Yeah, that's your MRA. Nice eyes.
Yeah, well done.
Sometimes it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
There's actually another one in that too.
What's the, oh, it's right here. What's the MEA, MRA, and MCA mean again?
There you go.
Oh, okay.
MRA is minimum reception altitude, and then MCA
Okay.
is minimum crossing altitude.
Okay. Sorry, I got up and did set my asses on there.
Very good.
There's your differences between Jeppesen and the NACO charts again.
Okay, I think I got that one.
So this image just shows you what we've been talking about, about the MEAs, MCAs, stuff like that. When you see the flag with the X, that's telling them that they have to, there's a changeover point or a fix that they're going to have to, I'm sorry, not a changeover point. There's a fix where they're going to have to increase their altitude to maintain clearance of obstacles. So that's just identifying where they're going to have to, climb. And you can see that there's that 6 nautical mile maximum displacement. That's one thing that I just realized we keep saying nautical miles, and most of you guys are probably like, what the hell is a nautical mile? Believe it or not, there's differences between statute miles, which is what everybody uses, like miles per hour, miles per gallon, right? That's a statute mile. Those are your standard miles. In aviation and also in maritime, we use what are called nautical miles. And it's going, a lot of our aviation terms are based off of maritime nautical terms. So you'll hear us use nautical miles a lot. Well, a nautical mile is basically, 1.17 statute miles? Is that the correct conversion, 1.17?
I would have to double check it.
I'm pretty confident that's correct. So, but just know that it's more than your statute mile. Oh, 1.15.
You're pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I rounded up, just not all the way.
Yeah, you know, you got closer than I would have.
Where did the difference in the two come from?
Okay, so here's a little bit of a history lesson. So nautical miles, the way we came up with knots, okay, was they used to, in order to determine how fast a ship was going, they had this rope that had a weight at the end, or not a weight at the end, I'm sorry. They had this rope that they would throw off the side of the boat, and they had knots on it, okay, at a specified distance. And the way they could tell how fast the boat was going they would time it. They would throw it off, and then they would start the timer and basically let the rope slide through their hand, and they would count how many knots slid through their hand. And once the time was up, they would stop the rope. Okay. When they stopped the rope, they would tell how many knots slipped through their hand, and that's where we got the term nautical miles, or knots, okay, indicating speed. So a lot of those old sailing ships were like 14 knots was a pretty fast clipper, okay. So that's where that came from, that distance between the knots. They use that to determine nautical miles. Does that make sense? I mean, it's a pretty like ultra fundamental way of doing things, but it worked and it was pretty accurate. I mean, those good.
Like 1 mile apart or something?
What was that?
Knots like 1 mile apart or something?
No. You know, they would, I can't remember what the exact time that they ran would let the rope slide through their hands, but it was something like, they just scaled it down to where it was like a 15-second or 30-second timer that they would run. And then they were able to convert that into the speed. It was just scale model, you know. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, and part of it too, I think, was also had to do with maps. That, as I understood it, the nautical mile was 1 minute on a chart, or 1/60th of a degree.
Right.
So they basically were taking the chart. They were taking, so the, you know, from 1 degree to the next latitude, that was 60 nautical miles, and they just broke it down to kind of fit in that.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just scaled down from what they would read on their map to a time that they could measure quickly. So, but that's exactly where it came from. Was that's how they knew their position. That's how they could tell how fast they were going, and everything. And that's how that term nautical miles an hour, or also known as knots, came from, was actually counting how many knots slipped through your hands. So. Once again, a lot of these, more pilot information. These off-route obstacle clearance altitudes, those are those gold numbers that he was showing you on the maps. We will use these when we're planning green needles routes, or we use them the most that I've ever used them in dispatching is we have what we call a flat fail AD for our CRJ 200s. That's pretty much what I use those for. the MORAs. Yeah, I mean, and like I said before, it really boils down to if you're over non-mountainous terrain, those numbers are going to be 1,000 feet clearance above any obstacles. If you're over mountainous terrain, it's going to be 2,000 feet clearance over obstacles. But I don't know. Do you have any more that you want to say about those?
Not really. It's I mean, that we could probably look at these and analyze them until we're blue in the face. Oh, great.
Just picture them out.
Yeah, that's a mountain, beautiful aspen.
Happy little mountain. There's a couple happy little trees in this beautiful, cute little lake that, you know, is just begging you to come and lay down by its side. A couple happy little bushes.
Is that like a Bob Ross sketch?
Oh yeah. I watched a lot of Bob Ross when I was a kid.
It shows. It's beautiful.
Dude, the guy was the happiest guy on the planet. You can't deny that. He may have had a little too much peyote at times, but he was a happy dude. All right, en route. Why don't we take like a 30-minute break? My mouth's pretty dry.
I could be down for that.
All right. So let's
back up at 46.
Sure.
Did you have another idea?
Yeah. Like I usually just kind of give them a nice round number. So like 750 sound good?
Sure.
Yep, sounds good
to me.
Sweet.
All right. We'll see you guys then.
Cool.
You guys keep us on our toes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, the only class that's done that, huh?
What was that?
I say we're probably the only class that's done that, huh?
Usually some of my other classes have been like super quiet and they'll tell me like 30 minutes into us starting again. So I appreciate the heads up. So a lot of this is going to just be mirror image of what we just went over.
Yeah. In fact, I think we've gone over some of it.
Yeah. So let's keep rolling here until we get to them. Oh, okay, cool. Sweet. We'll start talking we'll start talking about some of these symbols here. So that first red box that popped up on the very top in the center is just identifying a VOR, right? So we already knew that that was a VOR, but what's important to know, if you want to back up just a little so we can only see that box really quick. So we get a lot of information in this communication, the box that identifies what VOR it is. We get a lot of information about that station in that box. Couple things that we get. So starting on the top part of that box, where it says Ormond Beach, that's the name of the VOR, okay? It's the Ormond Beach VOR. I don't know where that is but that's the name of it.
It's down in Florida.
I was figuring as much, but oh yeah, by Daytona. Sweet.
Oh, yeah, we're in Daytona here.
All right, so Ormond Beach VOR. The D in the top left corner signifies that this VOR is equipped with DME. Okay. Does everybody see where I'm talking about? That D right in the top left corner of that box. Okay. The H just below it identifies it as a high VOR. Okay. You guys heard me say this a couple minutes ago. We've got high VORs, low VORs, and terminal VORs. Okay. What's important to know about these VORs is how many miles is that, we call it a service volume. How big is that service volume? How far does that signal reach? Okay. Here, one second. Do you want to tell them about the service volumes there, Davis?
Yeah, so with high VORs, our service volume is going to be 130 nautical miles. So that means at 130 miles away, we'll start to be able to pick up that frequency. And a low VOR is 40 nautical miles. So the low ones they don't go near as long. And the high ones go a lot further. You can track from a VOR 130 miles and then pick up another one that you're going to at 130 miles. It can be done. Some companies do not allow you to plan like that. Are we using the op specs for SkyWest, Garrett?
Yeah, we're using SkyWest op specs. So
okay, so it's only 130 miles, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not allowed to go from the VOR. You can only pick it up to the VOR, so you got to be within 130 miles. So that means if you're going from, I'll show you this here. We're in the high. Well, I mean, we can
go to the world high, the far left one there. World high chart, and you'll see the high VORs.
So if we're going, well, we're allowed to extend on a jet route. Are we doing that for this class?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were just going point-to-point navigation, so if we were just going from, let's say the Mile High VOR, DVV, to the Hayden VOR, CHE, if we filed direct from there to there, this one would have to be within 130 miles of this one for us to be able to file that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to find it. Do we have a distance measuring? No. It didn't let me use that, but yeah, so if we had filed direct from here to here, there's no jet route. You can file direct on that though if you wanted to, but it would have to be within 130 miles, and I doubt it is. So you wouldn't be able to find it. You wouldn't be able to pick up that reception. It'd be like trying to pick up a radio station in St. George when you're in Salt Lake. Like, it just wouldn't work.
Oh, how does that work if the VORs overlap? So, I mean, does that mean that you have to be able to pick up the signal by the time you reach that 130 miles, or does that mean that you have to actually be on the next VOR on top of it at 130 miles?
So within 130 miles. So if we're flying from here to here, so once we get over top of this one, we have to be within 130 miles of the next one.
Okay.
So if we weren't, what we would have to do, like if we were trying to get from here to here, from here to here, and we were trying to go there, and it wasn't 130 miles, we would end up having to go on this jet route, and we can stay on jet routes, and then we would go to this point, the Rams, and once we got to the Rams, or actually those don't connect, do they? We would have to go, this is a terrible example, sorry guys.
Well, let me rephrase the question. So does that mean you have to be within range of both VORs simultaneously?
No. So if you were in range of both of them, that would mean you were traveling from one, when really what we want to be doing is traveling to the other one. Does that make sense?
Okay. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out that, like, so in the two we were talking about, if you, by the time you reach the first one in Denver, you have to pretty much be able to get the next one in Hayden, or you can't fly there directly.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I was just trying to clarify.
So let's say we're flying along and we're coming in on this jet route, and we're coming in to Denver, and we hit Denver. So from Denver, let's say we're trying to go to Laramie. And let's just say that this is 140 miles. So we're not within that service volume. So we are not going to be able to find, when we're over top the mile high VOR, we can't find the Laramie VOR. Like, we're trying to tune into this frequency here, and we're getting nothing. So if we can't find it, then we can't go to it. So then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to switch jet routes. This one goes through it, right? Okay, this one doesn't, but we're just going to pretend. So we're just going to switch jet routes and get on this jet route and go up to this VOR, because we don't have to be within the service volume if we're on a jet route, because the jet route is that's going to be like a published route. Think of it like that. Right. So we can get on this jet route, go to this VOR, and then this VOR is only 44 miles from this VOR. So as soon as we get to the Cheyenne VOR, we can tune into this 117.6, and we'll be able to find this VOR. So if we can go here to here, and then over to Laramie.
Unless there was a published jet route between Denver and Laramie, and then you could just follow that regardless of VOR.
Exactly, right. Correct.
But according to this, I don't actually see a direct one. It looks like you've got to kind of take legs no matter what.
Yeah, there actually, if we switch to lows, there probably is.
Yeah, you can see mile high VOR in that big blue circle.
Yep. And we probably
you can see the Victor route.
And I mean, we could just stay at 16,000 feet and go from there on this Victor route all the way up. Because that's, I mean, well, oh. I guess we'd have to see what
you can actually. What's cool about the Victor routes and the way our SkyWest aircraft are built. We can still use those low routes at higher altitudes. Correct?
Yeah.
I mean, we can still, even though we're at 30,000 feet, we can still use that Victor airway to get to Laramie.
Yeah, actually we can.
it still counts. For this class and for our flight planning purposes, we'll never do like direct. You know what I'm saying? We'll never really worry too much about that. There will be times that we may go direct, but we'll address those times when we get into the flight planning portion. But for the most part, for the majority of our flight planning that we're going to be doing, we'll want you to stay on published routes. It just makes life easier.
It also, in the real world, when you file these published routes and file the jet routes and Victor routes, ATC will typically let you use that route. Whereas sometimes if you just do direct all the way across the country, they take that and they'll put it on jet routes and Victor routes that are similar to it.
Yeah, and you'll also have times where, so the only time that we flight plan like this when we're dispatching is if we have an FMS or GPS out and we can't use satellite-based navigation. So
to stop you there, Garrett,
yeah,
if you guys aren't familiar with what an FMS or a GPS is on a plane, the GPS is basically the same thing as what you have in a car. Like, it has all these routes on it. You'd be able to find, well, it has all these points on it, so you'd be able to go direct and find all these. An FMS is called the Flight Management System, and basically think of that as a database that carries everything. So that has all of these routes in there, all of these points, all of these airports, all of the arrivals, departures. It has everything on it. So it's very easy for them to just punch their numbers into it. It's just a little like computer screen, and it has a small keyboard on it. And it's also, we can use the ACARs in that thing too, in that little like screen. But they're able to punch in everything, and then it goes to this system that has all of this stuff in it. It's just a big database. And so when that's out, then we have to start looking at, okay, if everything goes wrong and we have to find our way, are we going to be able to pick up these frequencies and find our way to a VOR?
Yeah, and exactly. And I'm trying not to jump too far ahead, because I know you guys are probably fried already. Your brains are probably already gone right now. But yeah, what I'm saying though is that a lot of times we'll file these we call them green needles routes. We'll build a route like this, and ATC they understand what's going on, and they do what's called flight following, and they'll just let them fly direct. You know, I've had like Detroit to, where was it? It was somewhere in, I want to say in Canada, Toronto, or I can't remember where it was going to. But anyways, they basically took this route. I was so proud of this route. I spent like 15 minutes building this awesome route that was like all green needles. And I submitted it to them. No, the plane flew direct to the Canadian airport. So, I mean, they can still, even with those problems, air traffic control, they're aware of what the problem is. And, you know, they just tell the pilot, they'll guide the pilot. They give them what they call vectors. Well, where they'll say, fly a heading of 250. And then when they want them to turn, they'll say, turn right heading 330, you know. And they'll just kind of guide them to the airport where they need to be. So, but when we're planning, we still have to plan for worst case scenario, right? So that's kind of all I had to say about that.
Is this here referring to the barbs?
Mm-hmm.
So barbs is basically what we've got here. Is these 5-letter waypoints that we've got, and mainly intersections. Sorry, yeah, waypoints are intersections, and basically what it's saying is that you can find those based off of the DME and the radials off of other things. So it's giving you a radial off the Ormond Beach here, and it's giving you, DME 28 from this, and then 33 to here. So it's 46 miles once they've come off of this VOR down in the bottom. 46 miles, and they're 271 radial off of the Ormond Beach, and that's how you can find barbs. Or you could be on the 355 radial, 46, and there's barbs.
Yeah, they're just the reason why they have these intersections like this. Typically, they're setting aircraft up for approach into an airport. So these intersections or these fixes, intersection, fix, they can be used synonymously. Holy cow. They'll use those to basically set aircraft in or up for an approach into an airport, or departure from an airport. And so that's why those intersections or fixes are important to know. How to read the mileage off of them, how to identify where they're located, things like that. So
we have to have those intersections too, to be able to know where we can get on and get off of these jet routes and Victor routes as well. So we can't just be flying along all willy-nilly and decide that we're coming in on Victor 152, we're coming in on this, and then all of a sudden we decide we're right here and we just want to go down to the D-Land Municipal Airport right there and just kind of like pull off. We wouldn't be able to do that. So if you're on this filed, you would have to get off at Kaiser, and then probably would be some sort of, or you could get here and then go to Worms, and then, I don't know, I'd have to look at the charts to see what that is, but that's where you have to get on and off of these routes.
Yeah. And that's why they're identified as intersections, is because think of it as a road, right? The intersection is, you can't just drive through a field and jump on a road typically, unless you're in like BFE, but typically, you have to jump on different roads using intersections in a car. It's the same thing in an airplane. So, yay, intersections.
Yeah, intersections, guano, worms, really just beautiful names.
My cousin who said that there's some intersections or fixes that so the air traffic controllers that come up with these routes that we use, they're the ones that name these intersections. So my cousin said that there's one in Dallas Fort Worth that a guy named after his ex-wife because the route was a complete biatch. And
there's one. Go ahead.
And so, the air traffic controllers can get really creative with these names sometimes. You'll see people's names, you'll see, just different things.
A lot of them are named after sports players or sports teams as well. And there's one in Alabama that used to be each year it got renamed. And it was because there were two controllers there, I guess, who one was a big University of Alabama football fan and the other one was a big Auburn football fan. And so each year they had a deal to where whoever won the game got to rename that. And so it was like a big thing that would go back and forth each year. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. And then you've got like Atlanta Airport, Atlanta Hartsfield, the approaches into the airport. You've got Lord of the Ring names, and then you also have Star Wars names. So you've got like Jedi, you've got the Jedi approach, you got the Hobbit approach. I can't remember some of the other ones. Ewok. Some of the intersections are named after like Ewok, Chewbacca, Darth Vader or something like that. Vader, or I can't remember, but. It's a lot easier to see them at work.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd even be able to find them. I mean, I know there's.
Yeah, a lot of. I think the one to the southwest is. A lot of those are named after the Lord of the Rings, and I think a lot of the Star Wars ones come in from the northeast.
I think there's one that comes through Rome that has a pretty good.
You can see the chipper waypoint just to the right of your mouse. That's named after Chipper Jones.
Yeah.
You got Aaron.
Yep, there it is.
Maddox.
Maddox,
yeah.
Aaron, Chipper.
Calvin. You got the NASA down below. Anyways, they get really fun, really creative with them.
There's a bunch in Denver too that are named after rock bands.
Right click on Atlanta Hartsfield and click on the blue airport name. Airport name. Hartsfield, Jackson, Atlanta. Click on that. If you click on the name, it'll pull up a separate page, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Now scroll up.
You said up?
This has all your stars. Yeah, keep going. You'll see all your stars and SIDS. You should be able to see. I'm sorry, down at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
I think reverse and Mac. It's that inverted mouse or whatever.
Here we are. Yeah, the Chipper, McLavin, Gandalf, Hobbit, Jedi. Sith.
Ozzy, LaGrange.
Ozzy, yeah. See, guys, we weren't lying.
We never lie.
I think the LaGrange one was my favorite.
You a big ZZ Top fan?
Oh yeah, they jam it out hard. I love it.
LaGrange is actually a city down there too.
Yeah.
Why did this bring me to the Gandalf?
There you go. You got Baggins, Gondor, all those names.
Just brings me to the Gandalf. But you can see all these points, Gollum, Gimli, Gondor, Baggins, Bilbo Baggins.
Mordor.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them.
Smog. It's kind of fun.
All right. Does anybody remember what this thing is?
Class D airspace with a VOR DME.
So a VOR is going to look like this up here.
I'm
You
used
remember
to
what this
different
little
charts.
circle means? This little thingy. It's going to be an airport.
So that circle just means an airport's there.
This little blue one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's tons of them down there. This one, another one over here, New Smyrna Beach, Daytona. Daytona's got a, do you guys remember what this means?
That's a localizer, isn't it?
50 points to you. Points don't mean anything though. But yes, that's a be an ILS going into Daytona Beach there.
It's like that whose line is it anyway, Sting, where the points don't mean anything. I hope people know what I'm talking about when I say whose line is it anyway.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I do. I love that show.
Yeah, that's a really good show.
If you guys ever get super bored and you want to look at something really funny, if you go onto YouTube and find the outtakes from that show, it's all the stuff that got slightly too inappropriate for television or they started swearing too much, and it's unreal. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
My favorite episode still to this day is when Richard Simmons was on the show. I'll never forget that. I've never laughed so hard in my life.
I think I've seen that one.
They do the prop game and
Yeah, they use it as like a jet ski or something.
yeah. They're like, we need somebody to play the props. I'll be a prop. I'll be a prop for all of these men. Seriously, that show needs to come back. I think they actually are making they're going to redo the show. But fun stuff.
This is
So those
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say this is some airspace. I know you said D down here, C up here.
Yeah, and you can see that box just above it. It says, excludes airspace, R2934 and R28335. Excuse me. So it's talking about Victor routes that intersect restricted airspace. It's just saying that when you're flying those Victor routes, at least, am I right there? The Victor routes are okay to fly on. As long as you stay on those Victor routes, you're able to go through those restricted airspaces.
Yes, I believe so. So Victor 3.
Yeah.
That's Victor 3 going through there. So they're going to know where you are.
Yeah, as long as you're staying on the jet route, you're able to break into those restricted airspaces you see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So
restricted airspaces
just
are a lot of times too. I initially thought when I was going through class that those were like just a huge no-no and all sorts of stuff, but most of them actually only go up to like 1,000 feet or like 3,000 feet. Like some of them go pretty high, but if you actually take the time to check them, most of the time I find that I can fly right over them.
Yeah, and remember how we talked about restricted airspace? Sometimes there's active times, sometimes there's, not active times. Sometimes they allow people to fly through them. A lot of it just requires prior approval or for it not to be active. So, but we can still fly through those all the time. There are some, though, that are absolutely prohibited, right? We talked about those as well. You got those over the White House and the Pentagon and stuff like that. But it's kind of fun. Have you seen the black plane, Davis?
The black planes?
Yeah. So going into Area 51.
I've seen I've heard about the ones with the white ones with the red stripe. I don't know if I've seen the black ones.
Yeah, so it's just a filter that we can do, but if you catch it at the right time, you can set the filter up when the flight's actually going. But you can follow, each one of the aircraft that are in the air have those transponders on them, right? And you can actually watch the daily flights going into Area 51 from Las Vegas. And I believe they also do them from Hill Air Force Base as well, so up in Salt Lake.
Yeah, I have actually followed those, but they fly them into a certain area and then they turn their transponders off and they just disappear.
Yeah, and
they like basically get them to that airspace and then their transponders turn off.
Yeah, it's I can't remember the name of the airport. It's a Tonawip or something like that.
I don't know. I've seen it before though. People have pointed it out to me. It's really cool. It's interesting.
Yeah. So you can also see like UAVs and stuff like that, drones. Sometimes when you're watching, you can see drones at 60,000 feet over military areas. It's kind of fun.
Oh yeah, so that was our localizer there.
Let's get back on track, huh?
Yeah. Oh.
Let's just skip area charts.
Yeah. This is just airspace. That's what it's talking about there for Roanoke.
Yeah, so that video kind of talked about the different maps that we have available to us. Just you got those WAC charts, or what we call them, WACs, and it's just a huge, area of the country or whatever. Then you have your sectional charts. Well, you have the WACs, you have the world high, you got world lows, you've got sectional charts, you've got terminal charts. I mean, there's hundreds of different maps, and some of them we absolutely never use, like these area charts, right? I don't think I ever use these. So
I've never pulled one up.
Yeah. So, but this just gives you ideas of how to approach certain airspaces, what some of the certain restrictions are in that airspace. It's just way too down to the nitty gritty that we just don't even care as dispatchers, really.
I think this is the last one in the chart because I'm trying to keep going and it's not.
Oh, you're probably right. Yep.
Yep.
That's the last
That's
one. Cool. So you guys' brains completely fried now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's pull up this week 2 PDF really quick.
This right here.
Yeah. So this just goes through those charts that we've been through. This is going to give you a lot of definitions as well as different, it'll tell you what abbreviations mean too. It also gives you a much more detailed amount of information of what you see on those charts. So you can just kind of scroll through this. This is just, if you're looking through charts and you have a question, this is going to be available for you to pull up, and you can just use this as kind of a reading aid or a companion to going through those maps. I mean, it breaks down airspaces. It talks about, just anything and everything with these maps. Notice that it's Jeppesen, so like I said, a lot of stuff is going to be, you're typically going to be using Jeppesen charts, but pretty much everything translates between Jeppesen and Mako charts. These terms that you're seeing here, like the final approach fix, those are terms that are, regardless of what map you're using, you'll always have a final approach fix. It will always be identified, and it's always identified the same way. So, use this kind of as a dictionary as you're going through these charts. If you ever have any questions, this is where you're going to find that information. If you have questions on departure procedures, or you see a DP on a map, you can find instrument departure procedure, and it tells you what a departure procedure is. So just showing you guys that this is the companion for the maps. Just showing you kind of what information is in it. I think there's more at the bottom. I think it will even identify, or near the bottom, it'll identify, yeah, there's your acronyms. Keep going. I think it will even show you symbols, identify symbols for you. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is super, super helpful as you guys look at these maps. There's one thing that I don't like about the format of this class is I'm kind of debating why we're looking at navigation so early. I think I'd rather go into like meteorology sometimes, but then at the same time, I kind of feel like meteorology is a huge bite to take off right off the bat. So, so we kind of flip-flop on when we teach things in this class. Sometimes we think that it's better to start with navigation, and sometimes it's better to start with meteorology, but excuse me. Anyways, just use this to help you go through the maps. Okay, I'm going to try to find something really quick and get it moved over to the drive for you. Okay, it's on there now.
computer's from 2010, guys, so it's practically a fossil. Just bear with the speed.
Okay, I'm dropping a file right into that day 4 folder. You guys are seriously cruising along pretty quick. Do you know what? Instead of starting that next PowerPoint, why don't we do some quiz review? Get you guys ready for the test on Monday. So Davis, the way we do this, just kind of talking mostly to you. Actually, why you guys can take a quick 10-minute break. I'm gonna kind of go over some things with Davis really quick for Monday. You're teaching Monday, right?
Yeah. Am I teaching Wednesday too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's an opportunity if you'd like to pick it up. I've offered it to Derek since he hasn't taught yet. If he would like to pick up half of Tuesday's class, but if he is unable to, if you want to pick up half of Tuesday, you're more than welcome.
Sure. I think I've got Tuesday off, so that'll work.
Awesome. All right, so why don't you guys, you guys can take a 10-minute break. We'll get you back at 8:45. And if you want to stay and listen to mine and Davis's boring conversation, you're more than welcome to. But
I think we've bored them all to death, so they're
already asleep.
Yeah. Oh, Casey's still with us. There it is.
Yeah, I'm here. I just woke up. Just kidding.
Yeah, I thought I heard some snoring.
I thought I had my mic muted. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. This is actually really interesting, even though it's a lot to take in. But
it'll get way more interesting, like once you kind of get the idea of everything. Or do you have aviation experience?
I don't. Not even.
Oh, okay.
Not even a little bit. So
okay.
It's all new. Okay,
yeah,
I'll be back in 10.
Exciting stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So on Monday, Davis, what we're going to do tonight is we're just going to go over the quiz questions. A lot of the stuff that we're going to be asking. On Monday, we're going to try to set it up to where we can just do it. Have you ever used Google Classroom?
I have not.
Okay, so I'm going to try to set it up. I've never done this as well. So congratulations, we're in the same boat here. But we can do assignments, and so I'll try to create an assignment and copy it into the Google Classroom. If we cannot, like if I can't get it figured out by Monday, what I do is I just that email that has everybody's email address on it. I'll just take everybody's email address, create 11 emails, just do open it across the top.
Okay.
This is kind of hard to explain like this, but
you work tomorrow?
Basically, yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I will be there tomorrow, unlike today when I had main cover for me. But
oh, okay.
But anyways, I just open up 11 windows and I just compose, how you can compose an email message.
Yep.
So I will send out an individual email to each person. I'll just copy their email address and I'll put it on one per window, right?
Okay.
And then I'll attach the file for the quiz to that email. And then I've got this little summary of, hey, be honest, you know, don't use your notes. This isn't a slap your wrist kind of a test. This is
Should I be recording this?
No, well, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'd never hit pause.
I don't care. So, yeah, we're recording. But
yeah, I was definitely recording.
So
Yeah, I saw that.
It's recording now.
But yeah,
Thank you.
what I want you guys to do is write down the questions, because these are also what I want you guys to study when you guys are getting ready for your practical test, because a lot of these questions are almost identical to what you're going to be tested on in the practical test. Okay, so use these as a resource to help you throughout the class and for the practical. Okay, and know that now that we've gone over it and we're testing on it, that the expectation is that you guys will know it when we are on week 6 and we ask you a question. So just kind of keep that in mind. At the same time, all in the same breath, I also want you guys to know that these tests aren't necessarily like a slap your wrist, you've done a bad job. Okay. When we take these tests, these are closed book. We don't want you using your notes. We don't want you, you know, doing any of that. We want you guys to try to honestly answer these questions to the best of your knowledge. That way, when we go back and review the tests, you know, we can identify not only where you may be struggling, but where we may be struggling teaching the subject. Okay, so answer the question as honestly as you can. You know, if you miss a question, that's fine. If you score less than an 80%, when we go back and retest you on these tests, you only have to re-answer the questions that you got wrong. Does that make sense? So rather than receiving the full 15, 20 question bank, you'll only receive the questions that you got wrong. So maybe 5 or 6. Okay. It makes it a little easier to study. But anyways, so let's jump into this. If there's anything in here that we did not cover, please bring it to my attention so we can cover it thoroughly. Okay. All right. So according to the FARs, what are the 3 things that the dispatcher is solely responsible for? Does anybody remember my acronym?
MIC, PPDD.
Yep, so we've got MIC and we've got PPDD. Okay, so which one is for this dispatcher's sole responsibility?
MIC.
MIC. Does anybody remember what that means? Or can tell us what it is?
M was monitor the progress. I can't remember what I was the information. I's information.
Uh-huh.
C was something. Can't remember C. Who else remembers it?
He's
Okay.
canceled.
Oh, cancel. Yeah.
Okay, good. So you guys remember the 3 things, okay? Monitor, I always say inform and cancel or redispatch. So monitor the progress of each flight, issue any information regarding the safety of the flight, and then cancel or redispatch. Okay. MIC.
What does redispatching mean?
So redispatching would be like we're flying from What's a good example of this, Davis?
So the way it was explained to me, one form of it is if you're flying from Munich to Atlanta. So there's certain things for international flights, like you have to have an alternate, stuff like that. Most of the time it's hardly necessary. So say if you were flying from like Munich to Atlanta, you could make the actual flight plan for like Munich to JFK. And then as soon as you get over the United States, you redispatch it as a domestic flight from wherever it is to Atlanta so that it doesn't have to have all the extra fuel. And it's just a way of like...
Would they land at JFK?
No, they would land in Atlanta. So it's like two completely different flights.
JFK.
Or there's like... yeah, I mean, I guess that's the best.
So the one way that I've seen it attempted, we had a pilot attempted at SkyWest. So we don't, at SkyWest, we never redispatch, but we had a pilot that was flying from, where was it? It was somewhere in the south. It was like Dallas.
Oh, Dallas to Seattle.
Dallas to Seattle. That's exactly what it was. We had a scheduled fuel stop. We had to dispatch him to Salt Lake City first for a fuel stop. So what was happening was we were telling him that he had to stop in Salt Lake. He ran his numbers while he was in the air, and he said, I can make it all the way to Seattle and still have my reserve. But the dispatcher had, because the winds and the weather changed to allow it, or I'm not exactly sure what the circumstances were that changed, but all of a sudden he had the fuel where he could make it all the way to Seattle. And so he contacted the dispatcher and said, hey, can we just go, rather than stopping in Salt Lake for fuel, can we just go all the way to Seattle? And no, because that technically falls under a redispatch. He's in the air. We can't redispatch at that point. He has to land at the destination that we put in the original release. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah.
is that correct with,
Yeah.
does that follow kind of what you know?
Yeah, that's correct. So what I was saying is like for international flights, we don't do it at SkyWest, but I know that Mainline does it, and I've talked to Mainline people before on why they do it. And that was the example they gave me, was Munich to Atlanta, and they initially planned it as Munich to JFK with the alternate as Atlanta. And so it has the fuel to get to Atlanta, and then all of a sudden, as soon as it gets over the United States, they change the destination. So it's a change of destination, but it's not a divert.
There we go. It's super confusing, and what I want you guys to do is just throw it away. Just know that the FAR language is redispatch.
All right.
It's yeah. I mean, if you run into it at your first job, that would be impressive.
Yeah. And, there are times where, one of the other FARs, I kind of want to get, let's just, we can sidebar that one, just because I want to get through the rest of these test questions. Okay, so monitor the progress of each flight, issue any information regarding the safety of the flight, and then cancel or redispatch. Remember those. That's exact language that this is one of the FARs that we want in exact language, okay? Or as close to exact language as you can get it. So, and the same goes with the three that the dispatcher and pilot and command are jointly responsible for. So somebody already called it out, PPDD. Who wants to tell me what the PPDD stands for?
Pre-flight planning, delay, and dispatch release.
Exactly. So we've got the three that the PIC and dispatcher are jointly responsible for: pre-flight planning, delay, and dispatch release. And then we've got monitor, inform, and cancel or redispatch for our sole responsibilities. Okay. Everybody good there? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Okay, name three things that constitute a suitable airport for diversion purposes. You guys remember talking about this?
Is that the 1, 2, 3 rule?
Close, but not exactly. So this is when we're up in the air and all of a sudden something goes wrong. We have an emergency, or the weather at our destination tanks and we can't land there anymore. So we've got to find a suitable airport to go to in that case, okay? So suitable airport, we're going to be looking for things like fuel. You know, do they have the right kind of fuel for us? Do they have the personnel? Do they have a way to take care of the people on board? You know, let's say that it's a Canada to the United States, so we need customs in that case, you know. So fuel, personnel, we need weather at the diversion airport. We need, you know, weather to be above landing minimum so that we can divert there. We need long enough runways. We need, what are some other things that you can think of, Davis?
It's got to be. Well, we definitely want to have the landing distance. So we've got to be able to land with it's the 60%, right?
Uh-huh.
Yep. So we got to have that. I mean, we got to have weather minimums. They got to be able to handle them. I mean, that's pretty much all I can think of now.
I mean, yeah, that's like the main points that you want to see. So write down three of your favorite, whatever's easiest for you, right?
So basically, they can land there without completely hampering the operation of the airline, whereas it's adequate airport, right?
Yeah. I mean,
an adequate. Are you about to ask that next?
No.
Oh, okay. An adequate airport is basically just a strip of concrete that we can put the plane on.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a huge difference. Like, technically, we could land a CRJ at South Valley Regional Airport, which is, you know, about 10-15 miles to the southwest of Salt Lake International, but it doesn't have any way to handle that airport. I mean, they can fuel it, but other than that, it's going to be like fuel and then kick them off the tarmac. But when we talk about these you know, suitable airports, we want fuel, we want personnel, we want, you know, weather minimums, we want a suitable runway, we want just any of those within our fuel distance, like we can reach it, you know. Don't want to be diverting to LA when Salt Lake was your original destination and you're flying in from Denver, you know, you'd never make it. So you know, distance is a factor. So any of those, any combination of three, that's what we're looking for. If there's something that you can think of, even, you know, just think about anything that we can do to take care of that airplane when it lands. So here's another question. When is a takeoff alternate required? So this is one that a lot of my students get mixed up with the 1, 2, 3 rule. Okay, this is different. That's a destination alternate. But a takeoff alternate, what do we got to do? What do we do if something happens on takeoff? What do the pilots want to do the second they get off the ground and an engine blows up? What is their initial thought? Like what do they want to do?
They want to land somewhere.
Okay, and typically they want to land where? Think of Sully, the movie Sully. Where did they want him to go initially? They want you, 99% of the time, they want you to land at the airport you just departed from, right? It's like something happens, they want you to turn around and land back at the airport you just departed from. Okay, so when is a takeoff alternate required? Well, when we can't land at the airport we just took off from because of weather minimums, okay? So the correct way to answer this is when the departure airport is below weather or landing minimums. When the departure airport is below weather landing minimums. I like it like that. Okay. Everybody good there?
Yes.
Okay, so what are 3 parameters that your takeoff alternate, again, we're talking about takeoff alternate, what must the takeoff alternate meet in order to be legal to list on the dispatch release?
And this one, weather minimums?
Visibility 3 miles.
Nope. So this one's, once again, this is our takeoff alternate, okay? So this one's a little bit trickier, and you know, the FAR language is very specific on this one. So this one, what we're looking for is within, oh man, I'm trying to remember the exact verbiage here.
Like it's 1 hour at normal cruise and still winds.
Yeah, so within 1 hour of our departure airport at normal cruise in still air with 1 engine in op. Okay, I'm going to say that again. It's 3 parameters, but the at cruise in still air are counted as 1. Okay, so it's within 1 hour of the departure airport at normal cruise in still air with 1 engine inoperative. And that's how we want you guys to remember it, okay? 1 hour at normal cruise in still air with 1 engine inoperative. Okay, is everybody good
that
there?
That will be determining a alternate takeoff airport.
Yeah, so we take off, our departure airport is below landing minimums. So we take off, our engine flames out. We now only have 1 engine working. We have to, our takeoff alternate has to be within 1 hour of that departure airport, because your airplane can still climb and perform. It just struggles, right? It's like 1 engine trying to do the job of 2 engines. Okay, so it's going to be struggling, but you're in an airplane, you're going to still fly. Okay, so they want it within 1 hour because it's safe, right? It gives us a nice perimeter to find another airport that is got good weather. And then they say at normal cruise speed and still air. Okay, that gives us a time. Remember time, rate, distance. So it gives us both a time and a rate, or time and a rate, so that with our aircraft, we can figure out exactly how far that circle is, okay? And with one engine in op, that just tells us what our performance is. So with the CRJ 200, for example, that distance is what, 200 nautical miles. With the 700, I want to say 250 nautical miles. Is that correct, Davis?
Yeah, it's 250 for our CRJ and then 300 for the 700, 900, and ERJ.
Okay, there we go. So 300 for our 7.9s and the ERJs. Okay. So that gives us a mileage that we can look for our alternate. Okay. Is everybody good on that one? Okay.
Yeah.
So name the 4 factors for computing fuel according to the FARs. You guys remember this one? I've got a good acronym for it.
Wow.
Wah. Okay. What does it mean?
Another weather, anticipated, approach, or missed approach, any other reason.
Good. So wind and other weather, anticipated traffic delays, an approach and possible missed approach at the destination, and then any other reason that may delay the landing of the flight. Okay. Good.
What was the question on that one?
Name the 4 factors for computing fuel according to the FARs. Okay. According to the FARs, what is the fuel requirements? So this is different than the 4 factors. What are the fuel requirements for a flight under domestic operations? So this is the one that I was telling you guys. There's an acronym, but there's also a verbiage that they want you to memorize. You guys remember it?
Or
Yep, BAR's the acronym.
I don't remember what the wording is.
Okay, so BAR stands for burn alternate reserve. So when you're thinking about the verbiage here, just kind of keep those in mind and kind of picture what they represent in our BAR acronym. So enough to fly to the destination, then, that then is very important, then to the furthest alternate, then 45 minutes at normal cruise speed. So our burn is enough to fly to the destination, okay? Our alternate is then to fly to our furthest alternate, and then our reserve is then fly for 45 minutes at normal cruise speed. So everybody, does that make sense with everybody?
How's the question phrased?
Question is basically going to say, according to the FARs, what are the fuel requirements for a flight under domestic operations? Do you guys remember going over that now?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. I mean, the FAR language is really hard to interpret. It's so dry. The material is horrible, but you know, it's checking the boxes. But at the same time, these FARs that we're going over, you have to commit them to memory because they are test questions, they're interview questions, they're practical questions. You will use these throughout the rest of your career as a dispatcher. So, okay, so who remembers what the 5 items are that are required on our dispatch release? And I've got the best acronym for that one.
Damn it.
Good. Okay, so let me know what it is.
Tail number, trip number, destination and all other airports involved, IFR or whatever type of equipment, fuel supply, and then ETOPS if it's over water.
Okay, so you got like exact, how it's the pretty much the same order that the FAR stands for or says, but going back to our damn it acronym: departure, destination, intermediate and alternate airports. A type of flight means IFR or VFR. Okay, a type of flight, IFR or VFR. M stands for minimum fuel supply. We also call that MINTO. I stands for ID number or tail number of the aircraft. T stands for trip number. Okay. So those are the 5 things that are required on the release. Okay. Let's see. Okay, you guys remember talking about a high mins captain? You guys remember that part?
Yes.
So what is a high minimums captain?
Pilot that doesn't have 100 hours on that specified equipment.
Okay, good. And what do we do to his weather minimums?
Changes it by 200 feet. Or,
Close.
100 feet and a half a mile. Right?
Yep. So 100.5 is what we add to his minimums. Okay. 100 feet to the ceilings, half mile to the visibility. So knowing that, what are the absolute lowest minimums that a high minimums captain can have? You guys remember this? Davis brought this up.
301 mile.
Exactly. So 300 feet for our ceilings and 1 mile for our visibility. Awesome. Okay. What are the 3 things that the pilot must carry with him in the cockpit to the destination? You guys remember that?
dispatch release, flight plan, and load manifest.
Beautiful. Perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself. Okay. You guys remember talking about signing a release? You guys remember that? And how we do it electronically now?
Basically by sending over the releases, signing it.
Yeah, that's us signing it. And then the captain, when he does, basically is him signing it. You guys remember that part? So the way the captain signs it is he'll run his takeoff numbers using actual data. So we'll send it to him, he'll look it over, and then the way he approves it basically is he'll run his takeoff numbers and get exact numbers for his performance. So that's kind of the way that we interpret him signing the dispatch release. We call that the point of dispatch. Okay, is when the captain when the captain puts in his numbers. Okay. All right. True or false? A dispatcher should never declare an emergency.
False.
Good. Okay. And how many years or how many hours does a dispatcher have to spend in the jump seat?
5.
5 hours.
5.
Good. Okay, we've just got a couple more questions here, and then we'll be done for the night. Okay. So, does anybody remember the definition of operational control?
I kind of do.
Give it a shot.
With respect to the flight, operational, I forgot something about terminating flight at the end.
So with respect to a flight, the exercise of authority in initiating, conducting, and terminating a flight.
I kind of had my friends try and test me on that earlier, but I almost got it, like how I just barely did. But
yeah, I mean it's hard getting all of these down word for word. So what I recommend is you guys make flashcards out of them, and then study the crap out of them. Just a quick tip before we move on. If you guys have downloaded the app Quizlet, you can make flashcards and then save them or send them to other people. You know, if somebody wants to make a deck of flashcards for quiz questions in Quizlet and then share them with the class, you guys are more than welcome to do that. We call that dispatch resource management. That's us dispatchers helping each other out. Okay.
Yeah, it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to take the initiative to do it, I'm not going to do it for you guys because I've already made my thousands of flashcards for dispatch. But if you guys want to make them and then share them with each other, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay. Okay. So how old do you have to be to obtain your dispatch certificate?
22.
23.
23.
23.
Yeah, so 21 to take the class, 23 to actually get your license. Okay. And how many hours of instruction do you have to have? You guys remember that number? 200. Perfect.
200.
Good. Okay. We talked a lot about speeds, different speeds. What is the maximum speed an aircraft can fly below 10,000 feet?
250 knots.
250 knots. Now, what about underlying Class B airspace? You guys remember that?
200.
200 knots, okay. Remember, when we say underlying Class B airspace, that means that you're still under the Class B airspace veil, but you're not in Class, right, and you're not actually in Class B airspace. So just remember that upside down wedding cake and you're flying under one of the tiers of the wedding cake. You can't go faster than 200 knots. Cool. And let's see. Okay, when do we require an alternate to be listed on the dispatcher? A destination alternate. When do we require a destination alternate to be listed on the flight release or on the dispatch release?
Isn't it when the weather minimums?
Nope.
Isn't it if that's the 1, 2, 3 rule,
That'd be
right?
the 1, 2, 3 rule, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the 1, 2, 3 rule, okay, this is where it comes into play. Remember, we're talking about a destination alternate. We're not talking about a takeoff alternate. We're talking about the destination alternate. We got to segregate those. Okay. So the way, real quick, what is the 1, 2, 3?
1 hour before or 1 after?
1 hour before and after arrival. Ceiling has to be at least 2,000 feet above the runway. Visibility 3 miles. If it doesn't meet that, you need an alternate.
Good. So the way we want you guys to memorize this one is when you are asked, when does a flight require an alternate to be listed on the dispatch release, you say always. Okay, it is always required to be on the dispatch release unless you meet the 1, 2, 3 rule. Okay, an hour before, an hour after the flight, you have at least 2,000 foot ceilings and 3 miles visibility. Okay, so that's how we want you guys to memorize it, just because it sounds a lot cleaner, and it's, I believe that is exactly how the FAR puts it, if I remember right. So anyways, always unless 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then we talked about the operation specifications quite a bit. You guys remember those? You guys remember any of the information we require to be on an operations specification, or in the operations specifications? Or can anybody tell me what the op specs are? Okay, so for time purposes here, op specs, we've got FAR 121, correct? So FAR 121 is just the general guideline or rules or regulations for commercial air, air transport. The operation specifications are the airline's specific guidelines, regulations, rules. Okay, so the FARs are like the blanket. The op specs are individualized for our airline. Okay. So if there is anything that is not in our op specs, it defaults to FAR 121. Okay, the op specs is the airline's guidelines. This is any exemptions that we have from, or deviations from the 121 FAR. Things like that, that's going to be in our op specs, okay? So here are a couple things. I'm just going to go through as much as I can really think of that are required. So write down as many of these as you want. Know that you have to have 5 for this quiz, okay? First one that I can think of is the name of your airline, okay? So your company name, the company address. You have to have a physical address listed on your op specs. You have to have some reference to economic authority, okay? So this is us saying, this is, who we fall under as far as economic authority goes. You have to have a list of all aircraft, okay? All aircraft operated by your airlines. Any other businesses that you're operated under. So we call them, what is the acronym, Davis?
I'm trying to think, like the different names, the aliases or something.
I can't remember the acronym. It's like operated as, operated by. I can't remember
DBA,
the actual
doing business as.
Yeah, doing business as. Okay, DBAs. Okay, so that's saying like SkyWest. We don't operate as SkyWest. Okay, that is our business name, but that is not who we operate as. We operate as Delta Connection, United Express. What's Alaskan? I can't remember.
I have no idea
what their regional name is. But anyways, and then American, what is it? American Eagle. Yeah. So those are the names that we actually operate as. we don't operate as SkyWest. So any other business that we do flying for, we have to have them listed in, or any other business name that we do business as, we have to have that listed in our op specs. We have to have a list of all airports that we will fly in and out of. I don't know if I already said that one. We call those our C70s. Basically, any and every airport that we ever intend to land at has to be listed in our op specs.
So does that include the ones that are not currently serviced by SkyWest?
No, so it's like if it's listed as an alternate airport, if it could ever be listed as an alternate airport, or if it's an airport that we do regularly scheduled service out of, it has to be in there. But let's say that, you know, a perfect example of this is like Vernal, Utah. We only do business in and out of Vernal very rarely. But when we're, let's say like during the winter, we're not going to fly into Vernal, we can take them off of our op specs at that time until we intend to land at Vernal again. So we can take them off temporarily, and then next summer when we start flying back into Vernal, we'd put them back onto our C70. Okay, good question. So any one of those 5 that we just brought up, I think I brought up like 8 or 9. Any one of those.
Back to the list of all aircraft, is that just aircraft type, or is that all 300?
No, serial numbers.
Serial numbers for all 300 plus? Okay.
Yeah. So every single aircraft that we own or lease has to be listed. So, good question. Okay, and then last question. How long can a dispatcher be scheduled for duty in a 24-hour period?
10 hours.
10 hours.
10 hours scheduled, 8 hours off.
Yeah, so we can be scheduled for 10 hours. If they want us to come back in a 24-hour period, we have to have at least 8 hours of rest. Good. Good. Okay. That is all I got. And sorry we went over a little bit tonight. But study those over the weekend. Should have plenty of time to get them wrote to your brain. And then we'll start the class off on Monday with the quiz. Okay. So
When will
show
you?
up. What was that?
I was just wondering, when will you have this uploaded?
I can get this one up tomorrow afternoon. I actually was not able to get up day 3 up. I've got to get the password from Garrett tomorrow, so I'll have that one up tomorrow afternoon, and I'll also have this one up tomorrow afternoon.
Sweet. All right.
All right, guys. Well, that's all I got for you. So have a good night.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
All right.
Take
care.
Alrighty, Garrett, I will see you tomorrow then.
All right, sounds good, man. I'll end this so that you can convert it.